Hey students, in this lesson we're going to be analyzing a very special game. This is a game that when I first came across it many years ago, I actually thought I knew everything about how to attack when we're castled on opposite sides. And the moment I reviewed this game, I felt like I really didn't know anything, and that's why I wanted to share it with you. Last lesson I told you that we had to continue to work on this topic, and even though this is the critical position that I really want to go over and discuss with you, I'm going to show you the entire game. That way you see the transition from the very beginning, the opening, to the middle game, and how they were able to unleash a very powerful attack and win the game. So I'm going to put everything back, and we're going to start with the moves pawn to e4, pawn to c5. This is the famous Sicilian defense. And after knight c3, knight c6, knight f3, pawn to e6, the white pieces did pawn to d4. Now guys, this is the main line in the Sicilian defense. The white pieces do pawn to d4, the black pieces take, and then knight takes again. Now, since we're going to be focusing on opposite side castling, let me tell you, whenever you play the Sicilian defense, for the most part, you know you're not going to castle to the queen side. Notice how the c-pawn is gone. So with this semi-open file, I don't think it's going to be safe to castle there. So for the most part, if you play the Sicilian defense as the black pieces, you're going to castle to the king side. And in this game, the white pieces used that information to castle to the opposite side and create an opposite side castling attack. So after knight takes on d4, the black pieces just went pawn to d6, bishop e3, knight f6, and after bishop c4, all of the minor pieces for whites are developed. Now it's just a matter of castling. So after bishop e7, we know that the black pieces are ready to castle themselves, and they're going to castle to the king side. So here, the white pieces chose a very interesting plan, queen to e2. So this is giving the white pieces the flexibility to castle to either side, but we know they really want to castle to the queen side. So here the black pieces just castled, but I have to say guys, whenever I play this with the black pieces, I like to do pawn to a6. So I know I'm going to have to expand on the queen side, so I want to have this pawn ready to help me get to b5 and maybe even b4. Now in this game, the black pieces just castled, which is perfectly fine, and then the white pieces castled to the opposite side. We talked about this last time guys. It is already declared that the white pieces are going to expand and attack on this side. The black pieces are going to do the same thing on the queen side. We're just going after each other's king. Whoever makes contact first, that person should win the game, okay? And the idea is that if you make contact, let's say I get to attack these pawns, they have to defend, and whatever they have going on here is going to be paralyzed. So at this point, after the white pieces castle to the queen side, we have queen c7, putting the queen on a better position, then bishop b3 and knight a5. Notice how the black pieces are attacking with pieces, they're not using pawns. On the other hand, the white pieces are just pushing pawns. So g4 is going to allow me to, with the help of the other pawn and maybe bringing rooks behind, I'm going to get to expose the king. So g4, then pawn to a6, now pawn to g5. So finally, not only am I making contact, but I'm attacking one of the best defenders for the black pieces. Now, before they move the knight, they decided to take on b3, check, pawn takes, and now knight to d7. Guys, pause the video and see if you can come up with the next move for the white pieces. Well, if you couldn't guess the next move, we're in big trouble. The move is actually pawn to h4. We talked last time, guys, how this is the best pawn structure to have when you're defending. And for us, if we're attacking that pawn structure, we need to strike on g6. Now here the black pieces just did pawn to b5. You see, they're also expanding on the queen side. And by the way, moves like knight to c5, they're just not going to do much, because I could even do something like b4 and the knight has to go back. And it's very important. I'm gonna keep repeating this. In this kind of games, they're so aggressive that every move counts. If we waste one move, that could cost you the entire game. Other moves like maybe 95, the same thing. I'm going to attack that knight, I'm going to expand at the expense of the knight, and that's not what they want. Something like knight to b6, the knight might be ready to help this pawn get to a4, but he's just getting in the way of the other pawn. So they did pawn to b5, and now this is the moment, guys, that when I saw the next move here for whites, it really made me pause for a second and reevaluate all of the ideas that I had about this attack. Again, feel free to pause the video, try to come up with the next move for whites. To me, the right plan was to just do h5 followed by rook g1 and finally break on g6. However, I did not expect something so simple and so effective. The move is actually just doing g6 right away. And this person definitely understood the concept of attacking on opposite sides. We just need to make contact, and that's what they did. Now, it is true that g6 here is way more powerful, because if they take with the f pawn, we could even take on e6. So this knight is getting in the way of the bishop. But even if that wasn't the case, the fact that you make contact, let's say they take with the h pawn, is going to allow you to continue to attack again. And once we get rid of this pawn as well, we can bring the rooks, and we're going to have a very powerful attack. So in this game, of course, they did not take on g6. Instead, they just did knight to e5. And now I want you guys to pay attention to the next move for the black pieces. After the white pieces took on h7, of course, we want to create lines for our pieces to attack. Well, here, the black pieces, instead of taking the pawn, they just hid in front of that pawn. And this is something that I want you to have at the back of your head. Sometimes with defending, it just doesn't make sense to expose the king. So we use their own pawn to protect our king from any attacks. It's a very interesting idea to have. If they had taken instead on h7, then we have queen h5 check, king has to go to g8, and rook g1. You see, that line that we opened, we're going to use it for our rook. If they did something, I don't know, like pawn to b4, we could easily sacrifice the rook, and then with that open file, the king exposed, we're going to come over check, and if they did something like this, checkmate, that's the end of it. So that's what we're threatening, guys. They did not take on h7, of course, they just went king h8. Now after king h8, we continue with f4. This is a very clever move because f4 is not only helping us expand, it's not only attacking the knight, this is also allowing the queen to come over to the g or h file if necessary. So after f4, knight goes back to d7, and now of course we bring this rook to the king's side. After rook d to g1, guys, the black pieces made a huge mistake. Pawn to b4. I know it makes sense, they want to attack as well, but they allowed the white pieces to do a very powerful move. Feel free to pause the video. I challenge you to try to find this next move. It's really hard to find over the board, but give it a try. So the move, guys, is actually rook takes g7. Very powerful sacrifice, but it makes sense. The king is now completely open. We have pieces to back that sacrifice up, and actually the king takes. We could easily go queen g4. Now, king f6 is followed by checkmate in one move. See if you can figure it out. Queen g5, that's checkmate. If they had taken the pawn, then check, followed by rook g1, and they also get in trouble. If instead they hide on h8, we bring the other rook. You see, it's all about that file that we opened, and we're threatening checkmate on g7. Something like bishop f6, well, we're going to do queen g8, followed by checkmate. As you can see, that sacrifice is really powerful. So the black pieces, instead of accepting it, they just brought more pieces to help on the king side. So after knight f6, it is time for the white pieces to move. And then again, we're going to bring this rook to the g file. So after bishop b7, notice that they're not taking on c3. They have to connect the rooks and defend h8. After bishop b7, it's time to bring this knight into the game. Ideally, this knight will come to f5 to help us on the king side. Of course, we cannot do it right now, so they did another brilliant move. Knight to d5, we're attacking the queen, we're attacking the bishop, we're attacking the knight, and after the pawn takes, now this square becomes available. I know, guys, these moves are really difficult to find over the board, but it is just for you to get exposure to these kind of ideas. Just sacrificing pieces to get to the king. They know this game is not going to make it to the end game, so they're just putting all of their energy to get to that king. So after knight f5, the black pieces just took on e4, and now this bishop that is not doing much is going to be improved and put on this powerful diagonal. And after pawn to d5, guys, I guess they're trying to get queen f4, check, and get the knight. Well, it's just too slow. At this point, we have checkmate forced in a few moves. So pause the video again, see if you can find the most powerful move here for the white pieces? Well, if you have been training tactics, guys, you should be able to find the right move here. If you look at the forcing moves, if you look at the checks, we only have one check, and that's going to be rook g8. Now, at that point, if the king takes, I'm going to do rook g7, and that's checkmate. And I'm doing this without moving the pieces because I really want you to practice visualization. I want you to practice doing this in your head. So again, rook g8. If the king takes this pawn, then rook from the first rank is going to go to g7, checkmate because the knight is protecting here. So they take and checkmate. If they take with the rook, notice that they cannot take with the knight because this bishop is spinning the knight on the king. So if they take with the rook, we take and we're opening up this file, right? So we take, they have to take with the rook, and then we have queen h5 checkmate. Again, the knight cannot take because of the pin. So take with the queen, they have to take with the rook, and now checkmate. Now guys, it doesn't matter how difficult these moves were to find, it is good that you're exposed to them, but more importantly, I really wanted you to get exposed to this idea of attacking the king with this pawn structure. We want to break on g6, sometimes we do h5 and g6, but now you also know that sometimes you could do pawn to g6. Soon we're going to be learning how to attack. I'm going to give you other games on how to attack when the pawn structure is like this, and also how to attack when the pawn structure is like this. For now, let me know guys if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to go over them. I promised you last time that I'm going to help you get comfortable with this kind of attacks, and this is what it takes: reviewing games and learning from the best players. So with that said, I'll see you next time.